You are watching, if you're on YouTube, the Church Answers podcast. You are listening, if you're on your favorite podcasting app, the same thing, the Church Answers podcast. Hey, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, thank you for doing so. We'd love it if you'd subscribe to the Church Answers channel. Just hit the subscribe button right now, or maybe just give us a thumbs up. We like to get the word out, and Cheney and Associates is paying the bills, so this can be done, and as a free ministry to all of you. So we thank Cheney and Associates. They are the accounting firm for the church, and I've said it repeatedly. If you don't have an accounting firm that you're satisfied doing your books in a church, you got to get the Cheney and Associates. They work only with churches, 1,100 of them. They're an incredible organization in California because everything's in the cloud, though. They're able to serve you anywhere. As Cheney and Associates, you can go to CheneyAssociates.com, or you can just look at the show notes, or you can just Google it. Cheney and Associates. My friend Steve Cheney is a great guy to do this with us. Okay, let's talk about the anxious generation for one last time. If you did not hear my introduction of this book, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, go back to the first episode where I said more about it. And I introduced the author, Jonathan Haidt. He's a professor of ethical leadership at New York University School of Business. He has a PhD in social psychology. So that means he's a social psychologist. He admits he's not a clinical psychologist. He admits that he's working within his realm, but I want to tell you, his evidence is powerful, if not overwhelmingly so, of what is true. And he points out that ever since the smartphone, here's my iPhone, ever since the smartphone integrated social media on it, we have had an epidemic of adolescents' mental illness. It corresponds perfectly with the introduction of the merging of iPhone and social media. And so, in other words, the social media challenge that we have not to be looking at it. I got this mind, this illustration in my mind, I'll just say real quickly. I almost get where I don't want to go to airports because everybody's walking around like this. And I don't know how many people have almost run into me. I mean, that's become a normal posture for people just to have the phone in front of them while they're walking. Well, young people are exposed to some things at the age of adolescence where their minds are being shaped. And that Haidt calls it the great rewiring of childhood. The children who are exposed to the things that are on the internet and the addictive power of social media on their smartphone where they can take it to them, the harm is unspeakable. If you don't believe it, please go back and read The Anxious Generation. I want to talk in this last episode about the church. Does the church stand a chance of reaching Gen Z? Well, the answer to the question is a definitive yes. As a matter of fact, the church has a better chance from a statistical point of view. God can do whatever he wants to. From a statistical point of view, the church has a better chance of reaching Gen Z than any previous generation. Now, why is that? Well, I don't have all the answers. But we do have some of the research, and I'll just tell you some of the things I think are the whys. It's because this generation knows that they're not getting any help from the world. They know that all of the attractions and the allures of the world and all of the evil that is out there brings them no joy. And so they're asking the question, is there a place where I can find hope and joy? And guess what? That's what the church should be. Gospel-centered hope and joy. I get it. Churches aren't perfect. Far from it. There was no New Testament church that was perfect. I mean, which church in the New Testament got the most accolades? Probably the church at Philippi, maybe the church at Jerusalem. Okay, the church at Philippi? Oh, joy, 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 joy everywhere. Multiple times, some form of the word joy is in the book, in the 4 chapters. But then you get toward the end of the letter, and there's a fight going on between Euodia and Syntyche. And 2 women are fighting in the church of this church of joy. That's one of the best ones. You go to the churches at Galatia, and you got heresy that is beginning to form. Even the church in Jerusalem, you had some people lying about their giving. Ananias and Sapphira. First form of church discipline. What was it? Boom, zap, they're dead. Both of them, one than the other. Maybe if we had some of those forms of church discipline today, we'd be a more committed church. Well, I'm not going to wish that, but that was just the thought that was there. Does the church have a chance of reaching this anxious generation? The answer is yes, because they are more depressed. They are more anxious by factors of almost 200%, depending upon which subgroup, female or male, we're looking at. They have more reported self-harm in emergency rooms, again, at levels like 150% increase, 180% increase. Look at Haight's book. And their suicide rate is the highest we've ever seen of any generation, especially at adolescents. All of those things are taking place commensurate with them getting a smartphone with social media. Now, you say that's correlation, not causation. Well, here's the reality, folks. If you have enough correlated factors and they all line up together, at some point, you've got to say that's not just correlated, that's causative. And that is what is going on with the smartphone. Do churches have a chance of reaching them? Well, Church Answers has a brand new research project out. It's called New Surprising Insights from the Unchurched. We'll put a link there. It's free for you. Powerful, powerful research. We asked the same question to the unchurched and to those who attend church. And here's what we found. And this was also particular of Gen Z as well. Members who are unchurched, Gen Z included, they want to go to a church. They almost 6 out of 10 are saying, I would love to go to a church and start meeting people. But you know why they aren't? Because they're fearful of what that place is. It's unknown to them. For those of us in churches, why would they be afraid of a church? Well, they don't know that. They probably heard stories about it. Probably some of them are true. And so they will not, for the most part, enter on their own to attend a worship service. But you know what they will do? 6 out of 10, and it may be as high as 8 out of 10 if you actually invite them. We did a previous study that would indicate it was more like 8 out of 10. But regardless, somewhere between 2/3 and 80% of these unchurched Gen Z will go to a church if someone invites them and goes into church with them. They don't want to go by themselves. That's just, and once they get to church, what happens? They become Emma. Who's Emma? Emma's in my community group. We are a cross-generational community group. Emma is the youngest. I would have her, maybe I shouldn't be giving ages out, but I think she's around 22. I'm the oldest at 69, and we got everything in between. We're cross-generational. And Emma is a relatively new Christian. She's accepted Christ because a couple of things happened, and she's also Gen Z because a couple of things happened. Someone in the church, her neighbor, invited her to church. And then once she got to church, she was befriended by young people in the church. She eventually sensed the Holy Spirit convicting her. She went to see the pastor, who is my son, Jess Rayner. Jess shared the gospel with her. She became a follower of Christ, baptized. And she's one of the most mature Christians I've ever been around. And yet she's still a relatively new Christian of just a few years. Folks, she is the example. She's the prototypical example of Gen Z. Emma is. She had tough family upbringing. She had all the challenges that the Gen Z has. And she knew something was missing. And she began to find that there was something about church that began to fill the void. And eventually she discovered the person of Jesus Christ. And the obedience started with a church member inviting her and saying, I'll take you to church. And he and his wife did. And they showed up in church. She showed up in church. And she loved it. She knew it wasn't perfect, but she loved it. And now Emma is an evangelist for her generation. My point is this. Churches not only stand a chance of reaching Gen Z, they stand a very good chance, but you got to do something. You got to be obedient to the Great Commission. Even if your obedience is as simple as an invitation, not just say you come, but I'll take you in the church. We'll see what happens. I got a lot more to say about this, so much so that I wrote an entire book on it. It's called The Anxious Generation Goes to Church. Obviously, I like Haight's book so much, I expanded upon it from a church perspective. But that's not out to 2025. In fact, I've got a half a chapter left to write. I've got to get to that. So I'll let you go. We'll be talking about my book in about a year, I'm sure, one way or the other. But as always, thank you for being a part of the Church Answers podcast. Thank you, Cheney and Associates, for sponsoring us. Thank you, those on YouTube, for watching us. Thank you for subscribing to our channel and giving us a thumbs up. Thank you who are listening on your app. Give us a rating and review. And as always, we got 3 episodes, short, pithy nuggets every week, all 3. And we'll continue to share those with you on the Church Answers podcast. I'll see you soon.